The story takes place back when I was 14. It was an average night around 9 p.m. I was babysitting my cousin for the night while my mom and aunt are shopping and my dad and uncle are at the movie theater. So we're sitting there and I was feeling really strange. Something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it, so I just kept watching TV with my cousin. The feeling wasn't going away, so I got up and walked to the back door to make sure it was locked. When I came back through the kitchen, I saw what was causing my weird feeling. In the window, there was a very decrepit and homeless-looking man, just staring into the window looking at my cousin. Protective mode turned on. I pretended like I didn't see the guy and I told my little cousin that we needed to go upstairs because our parents would be home soon and they wouldn't want him to stay up that late. So I went upstairs and put him to bed, knowing damn well that there was a man outside that wanted to come in. I was about 125 pounds and 5'8" at the time, and I played football for my school. If I remember correctly, I went downstairs and straight into the kitchen and grabbed one of those meat tenderizing hammers. Then I turned back to the window where I saw him before, but he was not there. I ran back to the front door and checked that it was locked. Both the deadbolt and the knob were locked. I ran back upstairs with my meat tenderizer and went into my cousin's room and sat down in front of the door. He asked me what I was doing and I said that he didn't need to worry about it and that he should just keep his head low. Then I called the cops and my dad and uncle. The cops would take in half an hour and my dad and uncle were 45 minutes away. Suddenly, I hear a window shatter and the sound of heavy boots walking around on the main floor. I told my cousin to stay calm, hide under the covers, and to keep silent. I could hear the guy walking around downstairs. It was horrifying. I gripped the damn meat tenderizer and waited. About 5 minutes pass, and then I hear the boots walking upstairs at this point. At this point, I was having a freaking heart attack. My cousin's door is no more than 10 feet from the stairs. I heard him opening the doors to my aunt and uncle's room, then the bathroom, and then he walked back downstairs and I heard him open the door to the basement. 15 minutes later, the police showed up and burst into the house. They caught the guy, and it turned out that the guy was loose from a mental hospital a couple of kilometers away. This actually happened to a family friend of ours. It was mid-June and he was enjoying coffee on his back porch in the morning when he says a large unkempt male emerged from the tree line. This guy proceeds to bolt towards the house in a menacing way. My friend lives alone and often uses his backyard as a gun range. As the man from the trees is charging towards the house, my friend bolts all the doors and calls the police. My friend didn't know that the guy had actually broken in the day before through a basement window and squatted there the night before. The guy had left the basement door unlocked at this point and was making his way up the stairs towards my friend. My friend had his house security gun aimed at the guy who was now coming down the hallway. He fires the first round, which is rock salt, and the guy is unfazed. Next was a rubber bullet to the chest, yet the guy was clearly out of his mind and still coming down the hallway. The third shot, I'm not sure if it was buckshot or a slug, or if he was using a rifle, but the third shot left a hole in this guy's chest. The guy was still coming at him. Apparently he was a pretty massive guy, but he still wrestled my friend to the ground. But the injury caught up to him and he died on top of my friend. Meanwhile, the operator had heard the entire exchange between the two, which more or less amounted to, "Stop or I'll shoot," and "Shoot me, motherfucker." Cops were there soon, and it made local papers. There was some sort of criminal investigation, but my friend was eventually cleared. Turns out the intruder had escaped from a mental hospital a few days before from Baltimore, and made his way 50-odd miles up the road into some rural country. I haven't talked to him since, only his parents since the ordeal. But fuck, I imagine that messed him up pretty bad, considering the guy had obviously slept for at least one night in his basement. Me and my older sibling were staying at home. We lived in a small town in Ohio with very few people that lived there. One of my siblings was grounded. Both the house phone and their own phone was locked in my dad's gun safe, which neither of us had the combination to. The reason for being grounded is something silly and arbitrary. Can't remember quite why. My grandparents live down the street, and my great-grandmother lives in a small house which they built on the property so that she could be independent but they would still be close by. My parents said that they were going to go check on my great-grandmother, as my grandparents were out of town that day, and then they would come back and we would order pizza. That sounded good enough to 7-year-old me and my 15-year-old sibling. We played video games for a while, started to get hungry, and wonder when my parents would be back. After about 2 hours of them being gone, I hear a knock on the door. I went downstairs, pretty excited for the food, and my sibling followed a bit behind after saving the game. I walked up to the door, which had a very large window in it, and I saw that it was not my parents. It was a very tall, lean white guy with some short black hair and scruffy facial hair, about 25 years old. It was more jarring because everyone knew everyone in this small town, and I had no clue who this was. I held up my finger like 1 second and closed the curtain. I turned to see my siblings staring at the door, in a bit of disbelief because they had seen the person too. In seconds, knocking turned to pounding, which turned to shaking and rattling our doorknob. Terrified and with no way to call our parents, my sibling grabbed my hand and ran me into the kitchen. They grabbed a knife and I distinctly remember it breaking in their hand, and them grabbing a different one. We hid in the laundry room and held each other, hearing banging and pounding for about 5 minutes, which felt more like hours. Later, we heard the front door opening. One thing about my sibling is that they have always been ready to protect me at a moment's notice, and they were ready to jump up with their shitty kitchen knife and defend me the moment the dude was upon us. Instead, my mom rounded the corner holding 2 pizza boxes and wondering why her 2 kids were in a crumpled heap of tears on the floor. We both stood up and ran to tell her about the man outside, but we were met with laughter. My dad was outside talking to him. She said that he was asking about buying a broken down car that had been in our driveway for a few months and was apparently a mechanic. My mom felt terrible, but found the situation a bit amusing. Apparently she went out and told the man, and he said he felt bad for scaring us. We were given hugs and promised that the phones wouldn't be locked away while they were gone again, and spent the evening eating our pizza with choked sobs. But something still bothers me, even though it didn't as a child, something that I just never thought about. Why would an adult grown man pound on the door like that, shake the handle, and try this hard to get into a house where either the parents weren't home or the youngest child had held up their finger like 1 second to go get their parent? Why would someone want to talk about a car that they didn't have any sort of for sale sign on it so late at night? That's not the way adults act, and I don't think that I would want to know what would have happened had my parents not come home when they did. I was in the 7th or 8th grade. I was home alone in the same house. My parents were gone for the day and it was a weekend. It was cold and dreary outside and I decided to do my homework. I sat down at the kitchen table and laid out my books and notebook. To my left in the small house was the hallway. If you walk down the hallway, on the right side is the bathroom and then my bedroom. On the left side of the hallway is my parents' bedroom and my brother's bedroom. That's it. It's a small house. My brother worked all the time and was a lot older, so he wasn't home either. The house was dead silent. The house had that midday low-light hazy lighting effect due to the weather and not a lot of windows, which added to the peacefulness of the day. I was working on my homework and everything was fine and I was enjoying my time alone. From the end of the hallway to my left, a woman called my name. Again, it was my childhood nickname and it was clear as day. My blood ran cold and I froze. I looked to my left to the end of the hallway and saw nothing. My jacket was nearby, and in one swift movement, I quietly closed my books and grabbed my jacket as my heart was in my throat. I headed directly out the back door without looking back. I went to the standalone garage out back and sat on my dad's red lawnmower and watched the back door to see if anyone came out of the house. Although it would be impossible for anyone to be in the house other than myself, because my family were the only people who had been home all day. I sat there shivering for hours until my parents got home. As soon as they pulled into the driveway, I met them and told them what had happened. They checked the house and found nothing, and said it was my imagination. My mother still lives in that house, and I live with her to help her now that she's elderly. My father died several years ago, and my mom always heard Dad calling her name from the living room and talks about it often. She would go into the living room to ask him what he wanted, and he hadn't called her name. She still says it's her imagination.